Back in here, one more reaction video, ladies and gentlemen. And today I got a video coming to you from one of my favorite YouTube channels. It is titled After School. The title of the video is Why Smart People Often Believe Stupid Things, which I'm sure is something that interests all of us and why people be just pure delusional. We're going to learn a little bit about that in this video today. If this is your first time to the channel, get on here, park the whip, take your shoes off, get comfortable. As I love to say, we are simply spirits encased in human flesh trying to figure out this thing called life. So if you dig what you hear in this video, do me a favor and share far and wide. Reporting live from Kansas City, Missouri.
What causes delusion? The prevailing view is that people adopt false beliefs because they're too stupid or ignorant to grasp the truth. But just as often, the opposite is true. Many delusions prey not on dim minds but on bright ones, and this has serious implications for education, society, and you personally. In 2013, the Yale law professor Dan Kahan conducted experiments testing the effect of intelligence on ideological bias. In one study, he scored people on intelligence using the cognitive reflection test, a task to measure a person's reasoning ability. He found that liberals and conservatives scored roughly equally on average, but the highest scoring individuals in both groups were the most likely to display political bias when assessing the truth of various political statements. In a further study, Kahan and a team of researchers found that test subjects who scored highest in numeracy were better able to objectively evaluate statistical data when told it related to a skin rash treatment. But when the same data was presented as relating to a polarizing subject, gun control, those who scored highest on numeracy actually exhibited the greatest bias. The correlation between intelligence and ideological bias is robust, having been found in many other studies, such as Taba and Lodge 2006, Stanovich et al. 2012, and Jocelyn and Heider Markel 2014. These studies found stronger biases in clever people on both sides of the aisle, and since such biases are mutually contradictory, they can't be a result of greater understanding. So what is it about intelligent people that makes them so prone to bias? To understand, we must consider what intelligence actually is. In AI research, there's a concept called the orthogonality thesis. This is the idea that an intelligent agent can't just be intelligent. It must be intelligent at something, because intelligence is nothing more than the effectiveness with which an agent pursues a goal. Rationality is intelligence in pursuit of objective truth. But intelligence can be used to pursue any number of other goals. And since the means by which the goal is selected is distinct from the means by which the goal is pursued, the intelligence with which an agent pursues its goal is no guarantee that the goal itself is intelligent. As a case in point, human intelligence evolved less as a tool for pursuing objective truth than as a tool for pursuing personal well-being, tribal belonging, social status, and sex. And this often required the adoption of what I call fashionably irrational beliefs, or fibs, which the brain has come to excel at.
I would say, I remember my senior year of high school, it was like the last semester, and everybody was writing down what college they was going to attend. And I was like, nigga, y'all going to college? And I just put down Penn Valley Community College, the local community college here, because I was going to go there and play basketball. I didn't grow up around intelligence. I grew up with parents who never said, my parents never attended a parent-teacher conference my entire life. My parents never talked about religion. I was born to parents who was on crack. You know what I'm saying? So as a youth, I was embarrassed in my situation. I was embarrassed that my friends were going to college and I wasn't. I was embarrassed that I had to go to school and couldn't say that we didn't have lights, gas, and water at our home. I was embarrassed of all the things that came from my environment. So I never sought intelligence. I started covering myself up with tattoos. I did all the things that make me look cool instead of really trying to be cool, which is gaining intelligence, right? Individually on my own now, I was going to say in 2020, I read 30 books. And now every day, all I do is read and listen to podcasts. And I'm always trying to find new information. That's why I'm so anti-cancel culture, because if you take it, I don't want to just hear a certain set of ideas. I need to hear the good ideas and the bad ideas so I can make a meaningful judgment on my own. But people who are born into intellectual families and got moms and dads who went to college and doctors and lawyers, you are set out on a path on how to be versus I've truly have been a blank canvas in this world. I've had to go through a lot of trial and error, But the beautiful part about life is I've been able to course correct myself on my own without trying to live up to the expectation or the standards of my parents.
Since we're a social species, it is intelligent for us to convince ourselves of irrational beliefs if holding those beliefs increases our status and well-being. Dan Kahan calls this behavior identity protective cognition, or IPC.
And last thing I'll add in there is all of the fibs or internal beliefs that I was taught as a child by my environment, I could tell they were lies. I got to see the negative effects of them, but no one in the inner city tells the truth at all. They just lie and lie and lie and wonder why no one grows, no one prospers.
By engaging in IPC, people bind their intelligence to the service of evolutionary impulses, leveraging their logic and learning not to correct delusions, but to justify them. Or, as the novelist Saul Bellow put it, a great deal of intelligence can be invested in ignorance when the need for illusion is deep.
Man,
what this means is that while unintelligent people are more easily misled by other people, intelligent people are more easily misled by themselves. They're better at convincing themselves of things they want to believe rather than things that are actually true. This is why intelligent people tend to have stronger ideological biases. Being better at reasoning makes them better at rationalizing. This tendency is troublesome in individuals, but in groups it can prove disastrous.
I've always thought, now, having a college degree can also be a hindrance, right? Because if I didn't went through 4, 8, 12 years of school and I got this degree, look, mama, I made it. The last thing I'm about to do every day is keep trying to learn and grow. I got to go get a job so I can pay off this debt. Because once this debt is paid, that's when I can really live the life that I want to. However, someone who was 100% self-educated, I'm always trying to learn something new because I don't know what it's like to sit in a college course. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I've never experienced in my life, but because I have not experienced them, it keeps the fire in me to keep growing and keep grinding and keep becoming a better version of myself. So everything has a duality of good and bad, I guess.
Affecting the very structure and trajectory of society. For centuries, elite academic institutions like Oxford and Harvard have been training their students to win arguments but not to discern truth. And in so doing, they've created a class of people highly skilled at motivated reasoning.
That makes sense.
The master debaters that emerge from these institutions go on to become tomorrow's elites: politicians, entertainers, and intellectuals. Master debaters are naturally drawn to areas where arguing well is more important than being correct: law, politics, media, and academia. And in these industries of pure theory, sheltered from reality, they use their powerful rhetorical skills to convince each other of fibs. The more counterintuitive, the better. Naturally, their most virulent arguments soon escape the lab, spreading from individuals to departments, to institutions, to societies. Some of these arguments can now be found everywhere. A prominent example is wokeism, an identitarian ideology combining elements of conspiracy theory and moral panic, which became fashionable in academia toward the end of the 20th century and finally spread to the mainstream with the advent of smartphones and social media. Wokeism reduced...
Did y'all see them motherfuckers down on one knee for George Floyd? Hey, the same people that said, how do you go vote for a felon, are the same people that put up statues of a felon all around America. He robbed a pregnant woman at gunpoint. It's ridiculous how we play the hypocrisy of Black Lives Matter and the whole race war in America. Because it should have died a long time ago. A book I want to put out there for everyone to check out is Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. Manning Johnson's farewell speech is also available on YouTube to go check out. And then also read The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. We got to end this propaganda once and for all.
Reduces the world down to simplistic oppressor-victim relations, in which people who are white, straight, slim, or male are the oppressors, while those who are non-white, LGBT, fat, or female are victims. Wokeists typically reject claims of objectivity as a weapon created by straight white men to enforce the dominant, cis-heteronormative, patriarchal, white supremacist worldview. As such, they believe that the purpose of scholarship is not to determine truth but to promote social justice, or as they call it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. To this end, they will often use their intelligence to persuade people of arguments that are logically unsound, but which are perceived to contribute to a more equitable world. For instance, In the late 1960s, some master debaters decided that fat people are oppressed in a world where slimness is the norm, so they began to carve out a whole field in academia, known as fat studies, to address this oppression by creating cunning but irrational arguments to normalize obesity.
Every day, I'm glad that I didn't go to college. I didn't get brainwashed by all this ignorance. I just went to work right away and start paying bills and start living my life. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of parents send their children off to college thinking they're going to grow and evolve to learn about fat studies.
Ignoring decades of medical research showing that being fat is a serious health risk, fat studies scholars argued that anti-fat attitudes are health risks because they may cause obese people anxiety and stress. Since then, these activist academics have developed even more convoluted rationalizations. Many now argue that wanting to fight obesity is white supremacy. Just as fat studies was created to normalize obesity in the interests of social justice, another academic field, gender studies, was created to normalize transgenderism and gender nonconformity through similarly dubious arguments. One such argument, that sex is a spectrum, is often justified on the basis that there's no single thing that distinguishes all men from all women. Such an abstract explanation is seductive, but beneath the allure, it's just an elaborate case of the univariate fallacy. It's true that no single thing distinguishes all men from all women, but no single thing distinguishes all cats from all monkeys either. Is this proof of a cat-monkey spectrum?
Yada!
Even though fibs like sex is a spectrum and obesity is healthy are objectively false, woke academics have made them mainstream through a combination of crafty arguments and idea laundering, the practice of couching opinions in academic jargon and placing them in academic journals to disguise ideology as knowledge. These kinds of master debatory beliefs now prevail among cultural elites, including those who should know better, such as biologists. But they are rarer among the common people, who lack the capacity for mental gymnastics required to justify such intricate delusions. Despite being irrational, wokeism is nevertheless an intelligent worldview. It's intelligent but not rational because its goal is not objective truth or even social justice, but social signaling. And in pursuing this goal, it's a powerful strategy. People who engage in woke rituals, such as telling obese people they're perfect just the way they are, or encouraging kids to question their gender, or calling for the defunding of the police, signal to others that they're cultured and compassionate towards society's designated downtrodden.
It's interesting. Most of the people who were pro defund the police didn't live in a neighborhood where the police were needed. A lot of the people that are pro kids question their sexuality and their gender aren't parents at all. I really look forward to seeing what happens over these next 4 years with eliminated Department of Education, and the pros and cons that come with that. Because every situation has pros and cons, and it'd be ridiculous to say that everything that comes out of the Trump administration is going to be great. That's just not possible. However, I do look to see the changes and the improvements with the removing the gender studies, and everyone knows that health is wealth. I mean, and the twisted part about life is your health don't matter until you need it. You can have all the money in the world. James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, talks about that a man, wouldn't give up his gluttony. But read As a Man Thinketh, read Out from the Heart by James Allen. Just read, man, because I can't tell you why you should enter a university or send your kids to a university or all that. A lot of people tell me that I should at least go back to college to get a degree to say I got it. And who knows, that may happen in the future. But at this current moment, I'm more comfortable than going to the library and reading a book on my own and DMing a professor on IG or having a conversation with an intellectual. Hopefully one day I'll be sitting down with Jordan Peterson myself and we can just go back and forth. But no man is your friend, no man is your enemy. Everyone can be a teacher if you allow them to be, and you have the ability to learn anything in this thing called life. You are not limited by the environment you come from or the parents you were born to or whatever circumstances that the woke propaganda can put out there. A book that taught me that is The Science of Being Great by Wallace D. Wattles. See, for the first 25 years of my life, I never read a book. I listened to mainstream news, I listened to rap music, and I slept with a lot of girls who played basketball. I never thought about raising my intellectual property. And now that I've done that, man, the sky's the limit. You can learn anything, you can become anything, you can accomplish anything. Keep going, come up with some goals, smash them, come up with some more goals, smash them as well. Keep moving, keep elevating.
Their actions often end up hurting rather than helping those in need, but they make some people feel good for a while. and they increase their own social status, which explains why
Booker T.
wokeism is
Washington
most
talked about
prevalent
that.
in industries where status care
That's wild. Booker T. Washington said there's another class of people who don't really want the division to end because it pays so well. And look where we are in 2024.
aims and image are most important. Politics, media, academia, entertainment, and advertising. Wokeism is what happens when identity-protective cognition is allowed to run rampant through cultural institutions like Harvard and Hollywood. But while wokeism is currently systemic in the West, in the 1800s, the dominant racial ideology in America really was white supremacy. As a result, the master debaters of that age often used their reasoning not to justify discrimination against whites, but discrimination against blacks. An example would be the American physician Samuel Cartwright, a strong believer in slavery.
Oh, yeah, I remember
He
this.
used his learning to avoid the clear and simple realization that slaves who tried to escape didn't want to be slaves,
Had a mental
and
illness.
instead diagnosed them as suffering from a mental disorder he called drapetomania, which could be remedied by whipping the devil out of them. It's an explanation so idiotic only an intellectual could think of it, much like the fictitious disorder that white people are diagnosed with today, white fragility. Cartwright's case shows that the problem of runaway rationalization is not just a disorder of today's woke intellectuals, but of educated people of any persuasion and any
And this is why I've always debated, have the masses of people ever truly been bad people? Because the masses of people have always been led by the intellects. Like right now, the masses of people are led by the media, which we know is cherry picked and suppressed. Before we had social media, it was just the TV. Before the TV, we had the radio. Before the radio, there was just a newspaper. I mean, so the masses of people have always got their information from someone else. And unfortunately, the powers that be is always going to use your ignorance to their advantage. So that's why I question a lot of narratives. But at the same time, you got to start, well, I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. With all the propaganda going around, with every screen saying the same thing, every airport, every radio station, every newspaper, do you think the masses of people should be able to see through it? Or does it make sense that we have so many people that are brainwashed by the intellects? You know, W.E. Du Bois was really big on the talented 10th, where he thought the most brightest 10 people should rule the rest of the black people, while Booker T. Washington thought everybody should have some type of skill or trade so they wouldn't be used or abused. And if you look at where we are in 2024, the Democrats brought out all the celebrities and say, hey, vote for us, or they're going to put you back in racism. And it makes you think of Malcolm X when he said, these aren't leaders, these are puppets, these are entertainers. So let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Should it be easy for the masses to see through the propaganda? Or no, it makes sense why so many people fall victim to it?
time, and that includes you. Since you're watching a video about intelligence right now, you're likely above average in intelligence, which
Thank
means
you.
that you, whatever you believe, should be extra vigilant against your intellect being commandeered by your animal impulses. But how does one do that exactly? How does an intelligent person avoid a disorder that preys specifically on intelligence? The standard rationalist path is to try to avoid delusion by learning about cognitive biases and
Pause it right there. I don't think the narratives that are pushed out to the masses of black people are preying on our intelligence. I think they're playing on our emotions. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But most content that's put out to African Americans is to make you just black, or you just, oh, poor you, or you don't know you know what I mean? It's all a victimhood state. And I truly think if they did push out intellectual content, you would make people rise up and become better citizens and stop accepting the low quality, low vibrational content that's given to them, but also to stop living in degeneracy and thinking that it's okay and it's the norm.
you're watching a video about intelligence right now, you're likely above average in intelligence, which means that you,
1.9
whatever you
GPA
believe,
in the building.
should be extra vigilant against your intellect being commandeered by your animal impulses. But how does one do that exactly? How does an intelligent person avoid a disorder that preys specifically on intelligence? The standard rationalist path is to try to avoid delusion by learning about cognitive biases and logical fallacies, but this can be counterproductive. Research suggests that teaching people about misinformation often just causes them to dismiss facts they don't like as misinformation, while teaching them logic often results in them applying that logic selectively to justify whatever they want to believe. Such outcomes make sense. If knowledge and reasoning are the tools by which intelligent people fool themselves, then giving them more knowledge and reasoning only makes them better at fooling themselves. I've been writing about irrationality since 2017, and in that time I've noticed a disturbing pattern. Whenever I post of a cognitive bias or logical fallacy, my replies are soon invaded by leftists claiming it explains rightist beliefs, and by rightists claiming it explains leftist beliefs. In no cases will someone claim it explains their own beliefs. I'm likely guilty of this too. It feels effortless to diagnose others with biases and fallacies, but excruciatingly hard to diagnose oneself. As the famed decision theorist Daniel Kahneman quipped, "I've studied cognitive biases my whole life and I'm no better at avoiding them." This is not to say that education is futile. Learning can help to limit motivated reasoning, but only if it's accompanied by a deeper kind of development, that of one's character.
Spirit.
Motivated reasoning occurs when we place our intelligence and learning into the service of irrational goals. The root of the problem is therefore not our intelligence or learning, but our goals. Most goals of thinking are not to reach objective truth, but to justify what we wish to believe. There is only one thing that can motivate us to put our intelligence into the service of objective truth, and that is curiosity. It was curiosity that was found by Kahan's research to be the strongest countermeasure against bias.
And I personally think in order to embrace your curiosity, you have to let your ego die. And I heard Wayne Dyer say ego, EGO, that's edging God out. I'm in control. I got it. It's for me. I know what's best. Instead of moving to the side and being curious and say, you know, what happens if we try this? What happens if we try that? Being open to new ideas. Read a lot of Wayne Dyer's books. Your Erroneous Zones is a fantastic read. But also, Matthew 6:33 makes me think of this as well, the Bible verse. Because you can seek all these things. You can seek worldly knowledge. You can seek money, cars, clothes, jewelry, and that never really brings you happiness or peace. But if you seek the kingdom first, all his riches will be added to you. Just wanted to drop that out there.
But how do we make ourselves curious? Is it even possible? Good news. If you're watching this, you're probably quite curious already. But there's something you can do to supercharge your curiosity. Enter the curiosity zone. Basically, curiosity is the desire to fill gaps in knowledge. As such, curiosity occurs not when you know nothing about something, but when you know a bit about it. So learn a little about as much as you can, and this will create itches that will spur you to learn even more. Curiosity is essential to directing your intellect toward objective truth, but it's not all you need. You must also have humility. This is because the source of our strongest biases is our ego. We often base our self-worth on being intelligent and being right, and this makes us not want to admit when we get things wrong or to change our mind. And so, in order to protect our chosen identity, we stay wrong. If you define your self-worth by your ability to reason, if you cling to the identity of a master debater, then admitting to being wrong will hurt you, and you'll do all you can to avoid it, which will stop you learning. So instead of defining yourself by your ability to reason, define yourself by your willingness to learn. Then, admitting you're wrong, instead of feeling like an attack, will become an opportunity for growth. Anyone who's sure they're humble is probably not. So I can't say whether I've succeeded in becoming humble, but I can say that I always try to be humble. And, well, there's little difference between trying to be humble and actually being so. For me, trying to be humble entails the constant interrogation of my own motives. Could my most cherished belief be a fib? Why do I really believe what I believe? What other reasons beside reason could I have?
Very introspective.
My self-questioning makes me agonize over every word I write, but in the long term, my hesitancy gives me confidence, for by being careful about what I think, I develop trust in my thoughts. Humility and curiosity, then, are what we most need to find truth. By seeking one, we also seek the other. Being curious makes us humble, because it shows us how little we know. And in turn, being humble makes us curious, because it helps us acknowledge that we need to know more. In the end, rationality is not about intelligence, but about character. Without the right personal qualities, more education won't make you a master of your biases. It'll only make you a better servant of them. So be open to the possibility that you may be wrong, and always be willing to change your mind, especially if you're smart. By being humble and curious, you may not win many arguments, but it won't matter, for even losing arguments will become a victory that moves you toward the far grander prize of truth.
Boom. It is easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. I had just said the other day, I told my wife, I said, the more I learn, I have a lot to learn. And that's why I um, reject labels so much. I'm not liberal. I'm not conservative. I don't have a associate's or a bachelor's or a master's. I'm just a human trying to figure out this thing called life. And I'm very curious. And the world is a big library to me. And there's so much information that that I've never heard of. And I can learn something from you. But if I walk around with this superiority complex that I know everything, then there's nothing for me to learn. And I think I'm God myself. And I don't move that way at all. Every single day, I'm learning something new. And I encourage you to read for yourself, think for yourself. Because man, there's just so much knowledge out here. The book 1984 is interesting to me, but also the book A Brave New World, A Brave New World, because half of a society we're controlled on what we can and can't think, and then the other half, man, there's so much information that I don't even give a damn. I mean, there's another book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. The book Propaganda by Edward Bernays is something that's really dope because in high school I didn't know the terms propaganda. Um, and I talk about a lot about me graduating high school with a 1.9 GPA. And it's not that I was ignorant. It was my daddy was in jail. My mama was going to the club every night. Our lights is off. Our gas is off. Our water was off. So if it wasn't some girl's house I was staying at, I was in a house with no electricity. How was I supposed to do any homework? How was I supposed to study? How was I supposed to have good grades? So it's often said that when you don't do good in school is because you're not smart. If you come from an environment where nobody values intelligence, then what are you supposed to do? Now as an adult, man, I love being a nerd. I always say I'm an urban intellectual, and this was my true love. And because I couldn't really dive into my brain, into my intellect, that's when I chose basketball and I chose women and I chose the toxic vices of life. But I was able to discard all my negative habits and embrace the positive ones that I knew God put in me from the start. You dig what I'm saying? And you as well. You have survived 100% of your bad days, and it's never too late to drop all negative habits and start embracing positive ones. There's always room for improvement in this thing called life. And no man is your friend, no man is your enemy, but everyone can be a teacher if you allow them to be. So I'm teaching you that you have greatness inside of you. You know what you love to do. You know what's important to you. You may not have the creativity of the creators of this channel after school, but you know what you can create, whether it's singing, dancing, frying chicken, baking cookies, some fish. You may make some really good spaghetti, some macaroni and cheese. You could be a photographer, right? You could be a wedding planner, a wedding coordinator. There's just an abundance of things that we can do, or you can become someone that doesn't exist. We didn't have streamers 10 years ago. Podcast wasn't a big deal 25 years ago. So there's no telling what new ideas you could bring into this world. Yes, I'm talking directly to you. I love you all. Have a beautiful day. We outie.